Hi, everyone. We are back for another masterclass. And today we are looking at one particular word in Spanish, which is a very, very common word in sort of the business environment. And it's an important word to get right because it can be vital in key situations, especially sort of in interviews. And this particular word is the word curriculum. Okay, curriculum in Spanish. Okay, now how do we translate that into English? And more particularly, how do we translate it correctly? Because what we'll look at first is the key mistakes that people make when they think about this in their minds, and then kind of maybe don't give the best impression when they are in those key conversations in an interview. And as usual, Alistair is here with me. Hi, Alistair. How are you doing?
Hi, Daniel. Yeah, interesting concept. So,
Yeah.
well, it comes from Latin, doesn't it? So, curriculum vitae, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how you pronounce it, vitae, something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm.
So, generally, we never say that. We never say the vitae.
Mm.
We'd say CV. So, you
That's
just
right.
use the initials. So, in the English speaking world, well, it depends. We'll come to that.
We'll
At
come to
least
that.
in the
Yeah.
United Kingdom, and I think in Australia, New Zealand, I think it's the same. Most people, most of the time, would say my CV. I'll send you my CV, or can you help me with my? People often ask, can you help me with my CV to
Yeah.
translate it?
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
Spanish,
Yeah.
you say curriculum, but we wouldn't. In English, we wouldn't usually say curriculum. Well, it has another meaning if you say curriculum. That's the
Yeah.
point. So, what would you
Yeah.
understand? Somebody said curriculum. What do you think they were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, this is where the real, I think it's very important for people to kind of get it very clear in their minds the kind of mistakes that they are likely to make, right? And we
Mhm.
identified two particular mistakes, and these two words, one of which is curriculum, because I would say most people, most Spanish speakers say curriculum, like, oh, I need to look at my curriculum or I need to update my curriculum. It's kind of just
Mm.
comes very, very naturally, right, to
Mm.
their brains in terms of like what I should say, obviously because of the Spanish word itself. But in
Yeah, which we
English,
understand if somebody
yeah,
says, I mean,
yeah,
oh,
no,
your
it is
curriculum often.
understandable, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
But if I had to say, what would need to be improved, then I would definitely highlight that as something being to improve because it just makes a bit of a difference, right? When you're explaining
Yeah.
it in an interview context. So a curriculum in itself is an English word. It's just not associated with your curriculum. It's just basically something that it is still within the academic world, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and it's often related to the content of what a school might cover over one particular year, right? So the
Yeah.
curriculum this year will cover this, this, and this.
Yeah. The school curriculum is
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
so the if it's state schools, the government, I suppose, the education department would set the curriculum.
yeah,
So they'd say, okay, this year in history, you're studying this period in history, or
yeah,
this mathematics, or this, and this is the curriculum, the content of the academic year, or the content of a course you're studying is the curriculum. So we would understand curriculum in that sense. What's the curriculum in for history this year in year 3 or year 10? So, studying I don't know, the First World War and something. That's the curriculum.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so we abbreviate curriculum vitae to CV, just to the
Mhm.
initials. Whereas in Spain, curriculum vitae from Latin gets abbreviated to curriculum, the first
That's
word.
right. That's
But
right.
then curriculum in English means something else. And
Else
this
that
is
and
the
that's the key problem, right? Because it's
mm,
kind of just that association or that idea that okay, I understand this word, I have this word in Spanish, and I think it will work in English. Well, it does work in English, but it has a different meaning. So you have to be careful. That's the
mm,
first trap, let's say.
mm,
But there is a second trap as well, isn't there? Because some people might think, yeah, but I don't want to use curriculum because I know there's an American version that I like much, much more, but then they
mm.
pronounce it incorrectly, right? And then that means something else when they pronounce it incorrectly. So that's
Yeah.
really, really tricky, right? So what is that word, Alistair?
Yeah. So the American, they don't say, or usually they don't say CV or curriculum. Well, they say curriculum in the meaning of education. They use it in that sense.
Hmm.
But they would say this strange word, it's from French. It's a French word. Why they use a French word, I really don't know.
Hmm.
Well, I suppose we're using Latin, so maybe it's no stranger. But they say resume,
Hmm.
resume. which is like a summary, of your. Well, that's what it is. It's a summary of your career, your professional career, your experience, etc. So they say a résumé with the accent résumé at the end. And we were talking about this, and we're pretty sure that it is actually written like French with an accent. So in English, we don't have accents, but this word from French has an accent. Maybe you even said it might even have two.
Yeah, it might have two. I think you can.
So we're not even sure about this because we don't use this word. So Americans use it. So I would always, if you're going to use it, if you're going to write it at least, I'd check it just to be sure where you put the accents. So it's pretty sure it's got one on the end, on the E.
For sure,
when
because
you speak, you put the accent or the stress, as we call it in English, résumé, and that is your CV. So Americans would use that. If you said CV, they'd understand you. And if you said to a British person, résumé, they would also understand what you mean, because we hear it from American movies and TV series. And so we are aware of this word from America. So I think you can choose whichever one you want, whichever you find easier to pronounce or to remember, or the audience you're talking to. So maybe if you're being interviewed by an American company by Americans, perhaps use résumé. And if you're talking to British people or a British company, maybe better to say CV.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the mistake, Daniel.
So yes, that's what we need to. That's résumé, what we need to. Yeah.
What is the mistake that can easily be made?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the mistake there is to actually not. Maybe pronounce it exactly as it is written, maybe in some way or form. It's just, and basically then when you don't have that résumé sort of emphasis or stress at the end, then you would basically pronounce it as resume. Now, that's going to be very tempting for you, because if you look at the word, you probably would just say resume.
Well,
right?
If it didn't have the accents, maybe that's why they make. That's probably what I'm just thinking now. Probably the reason the Americans keep the accents from French, which is unusual in English, is precisely to avoid that confusion between résumé, your CV, and resume. So if I see that word without the accents, I just say, oh, resume. That would be my first thought about how to pronounce it, which is the word, but it's a verb and it's nothing to do with your CV. So what does it mean to resume something?
To resume is normally a process of some kind. So maybe you've started a piece of work, of a report, right? You're interrupted for some reason. Maybe you have to go home, or you have to do some other task, and then you come back. You come back to that piece of work, and then you resume the process of getting, moving forward with that piece of work. So it's a process that's normally been interrupted, and that you need to keep on going with at a later time, right? So you're resuming a certain type of process.
Starting again. Something had started, you stop for some reason, and then you start again. So you resume. So it's not to do with summarizing. So you're not summarizing. In résumé from French, that's what it means. It's a summary, as we would say in English, of your professional career.
Sure.
But when you say resume, it's nothing to do with, you're not summarizing anything. You're simply, as you say, starting again something you've done before and stopped. So you're going to resume battle in military things. No, you can have at the moment, there's a ceasefire. So if you have there's a war going on, and there's a temporary peace or a ceasefire, as we call it, alto de fuego. No, they start for a week. You've stopped fighting for a week, but then after a week, maybe you resume fighting.
Yeah.
So you start again the war.
Yeah.
But there's many things that you can resume.
Absolutely.
Or a hobby that you had, you stopped. You're starting again.
Yeah. Or even a game. They can resume a game.
After a break.
Some sort of like maybe tennis where they take a break, or whatever. A rain break. They resume play. Okay.
Yeah, they say that, don't they?
They do.
Play will be resumed.
That's right.
minutes.
That's right. Absolutely. So there you go.
That's true. Yeah, it's often in sport actually resume after some kind of break for weather or some problem.
Yeah.
In football, often maybe some crowd trouble.
Yeah.
They've had to stop the game because something's happening, and the players maybe go off the pitch. And when everything's calmed down, they can resume the match. So start again, basically.
Often used in sort of like when they're sort of a loudspeaker announcement to other people, and it's like play will be resumed within 10 minutes or in 10 minutes, or It's kind of a nice word. It's a little bit more formal rather than saying play will start again. No, it's like, or it's like play will be resumed.
Those sort of official announcements, isn't it, over the loudspeaker, as you say?
Yeah.
So there's some break in the whatever it is, the tennis match for rain. People don't know what's happening. When are they? It stopped raining. Why aren't they playing? And they might say, official announcement, ladies and gentlemen, play will resume on the centre court at 2:00 or in 20 minutes. Or
that's right.
As soon as possible, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's used quite often in that way. Resume, nothing to do with your resume. So exactly. That's the two mistakes, isn't it? To pronounce resume, resume by mistake. I need to update my resume. No, doesn't work.
No.
Or my calling a CV a curriculum.
That's right.
They are the two errors.
They are the two big ones. They are the two big ones. And so to this week's challenge is definitely related to that. We want to get it into your mind that the correct versions are obviously CV and resume. You can choose whichever one you want, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Obviously, if you're going to the US or have an idea that a US company is going to interview, then maybe a resume might be better, but CV is fine as well. And your challenge this week is really to refer to that particular document correctly. That's the first thing.
One or the other.
Yeah. And at the same time, to add a little bit of spice to it, we're going to ask you, what is the most impressive thing on your CV or resume? Okay, so that is your challenge. That is what you can record yourself telling us all about. And we will see that
impressive or the strangest thing.
Strange, yes.
The most interesting thing, the strangest thing,
unusual thing, yes.
Unusual or impressive. So any of those adjectives,
yes,
to tell us something interesting about your CV or your resume, and
that's
about
right.
you. Obviously, you're talking about yourself, so
that's right.
It's also quite nice, maybe some, I don't know, strange qualification you have or work experience or whatever it may be. It's open for you to tell us something about your CV or your resume, and try to use one of those two words correctly when you tell us your story. No?
Absolutely. Good. Alistair, thank you very much. That was the masterclass this week. We will be back again next week with another challenge. But for now, thank you very much. And I'll see you soon. All right.
Thank you. Cheers.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.